Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark. And in this episode, I'm joined by co-hosts Phil Lindsey and Chris Mueller. From the Marvel Cinematic Universe comes one of the most popular superheroes of all time, in a quest to save a young girl from a former ally whose reckless behavior threatens to tear apart the very fabric of reality from one universe to another. We're talking about the Multiverse of Madness. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness was directed by Sam Raimi on a screenplay by Michael Waldron. It was released on May 6, 2022 and was distributed by Walt Disney Studios. The Multiverse of Madness takes place after the events of WandaVision, the Disney Plus series that focused on the characters of Wanda Maximoff and the Vision. The driving narrative of that story saw Wanda take a small town hostage, creating a fictional reality in which she and the Vision were a happily married couple with 2 children. But when that reality came crashing down, Wanda's conjured children disappeared, leaving her trying to find a way to get them back. She soon discovers America Chavez, a young adventurer from another Earth with the ability to open portals and travel through the multiverse. America was assisted by another Doctor Strange who ultimately tried to take her powers, killing her in the process. She fled to Earth 616, the world containing the primary Marvel Cinematic Universe, and enlisted the help of that Earth's Doctor Strange. Agreeing to help America, Strange contacts Wanda for assistance, only to find that she was already planning to abduct America and use her powers to find the children that she once created who actually exist in the multiverse. Doctor Strange works with the current Sorcerer Supreme, Wong, to protect America from Wanda, who takes on the powers and personality of the Scarlet Witch. Along the way, Strange visits other worlds and finds both familiar faces and twisted versions of people he knows from his own world. In the month after its release, the Multiverse of Madness made over $820 million on a budget of $200 million. The movie earned $90 million on its opening day, making it the 7th best opening day in industry history. It received a 74% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and ended with the promise of Doctor Strange's return in a future film. Thanks to the action, the characters, the surprise appearances, and the dramatic storytelling, the Multiverse of Madness is a well-received chapter in the story of Doctor Strange, a hero that will surely continue to fight the good fight in the MCU. And that's the lowdown on the Multiverse of Madness. The idea of the multiverse is not a new thing in the world of comic books. As comic book fans, and you know who you are, DC's done it for years. They've based a lot of their TV properties, their TV universe, on the idea of the multiverse. The movies have touched on it here and there. Marvel's done the same thing. I mean, and honestly, it's one of those areas that I personally have always loved as a fan. As a creator, I can honestly understand why it can be both a headache and a salvation at the same time. A headache because you're trying to keep up with continuity for continuity's sake. Like what universe is this guy in? What dimension is he from? What Earth is he on? I can't remember, whatever. But also it's a salvation because you can just pull the plug on any planet at any time, in any dimension. I don't like this Earth. Let's just blow it up. Let's just put this guy over here. It doesn't matter. So I can see sort of the benefits and maybe the drawbacks of it at the same time. As far as entertainment wise, I love this stuff. I love the idea of we're going to visit this Earth today. We're going to visit this universe, this dimension, this alternate reality, whatever, this parallel world, whatever, however you want to call it. And here's a set of heroes, but maybe they're all there, maybe they're not. I mean, of course, we got a heaping helping of this in Spider-Man No Way Home. And it was quite the spectacle. We got 3 Spider-Man. Spoiler alert, kids, in case you haven't seen it. It was amazing, pun intended. I'm a big fan of that movie. We knew that movie was going to segue straight into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and it pretty much has. And of course, that's what we're talking about here today. I think we all expected certain things going into this, and I don't know how this hit both of you guys, if your expectations were met, if they were exceeded, or if you came away disappointed. So Chris, let me ask you a sort of a broad overview as we get cranking here today. Did this hit your expectations, or did it exceed them, or were you let down? What's your overall view of the film?
It hit expectations. I won't say that this is my top Marvel movie of all time now, but I really enjoyed it, and I thought that the all the surprises they put in were fun, and I thought they did a good job in other aspects that we can get into later. But yeah, I really liked this movie. I thought it was a really, really solid entry into Marvel, and a much. I don't want to say much better because I actually really like the first Doctor Strange, but I feel like this exceeded the first one. It was a good step in the right direction of being a better movie.
Interesting. I've heard that take, but I've heard the other one also. So I'm curious, Phil, what is your take on this? Are you with Chris? Where do you differ in your opinion, or how do you feel about it?
I really enjoyed it. As somebody that is a big fan of Sam Raimi as a director, I really enjoyed seeing him direct a comic book movie again. And I think Doctor Strange is a perfect character for him. I think he did all the horror stuff really well in this movie. I really like it, and I think they managed to somehow one up all of the trippiness of the first movie.
Which was hard to do. That's a tall order, but you're 100% right. He definitely pulled it off. And really, it all comes down to the director here, doesn't it? I mean, how many times have, and you guys can answer this for sure. How many times have you watched one of these Marvel films and didn't really think too much about the director? Like you may have known the name, but you didn't come away from it going, "Oh, that Joe Johnson. Oh my God." I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, but going into this, we knew it was Sam. We kind of knew what to expect. Chris, does he, maybe overshadow is the wrong word. Does his shadow loom large over this project in terms of expectation, or what's your take on that?
No, I don't think him being involved put too much of an expectation on it. I think it just made people more interested in it because they're like, oh, it's the first one since Spider-Man, and everybody kept hearing like, oh, this is going to be a little more horror leaning. And even though I would never classify this movie as a horror movie, he used all of the right elements to accentuate all the stuff that he put in this movie. So even though I would be fine taking a 10-year-old to see this and I don't think they'd be scared, I recognize all the horror elements and how well they were executed, if that makes sense.
Oh, 100%. And it's definitely a Sam Raimi film. All of his customary tropes are there. And trope sometimes is a bad word, guys. You know, I hear that word, people use it, and sometimes it's meant kind of negative connotation. I mean it positively. I'm a fan of Sam too. Darkman's still one of my favorite movies, and there's moments in that film that are utterly ridiculous in the way you know how he shoots his films. But I'm still a fan of it, man. Back before anybody really knew who Liam Neeson is. Big fan of that film. His Evil Dead stuff. Guilty pleasure is Bruce Campbell, 100%. And of course the Spider-Man stuff, obviously. But yeah, I'm a fan of his, dude. Chris, do you think he was the right choice for this film?
Yeah, I mean, the film was a success, so I think, they could have gone with a different director who went in a different direction and it still could have been a success. I rarely ever believe that there's only one director who could have done something. But I do think that there are certain movies that it stands out as being that guy. Like, you can tell James Gunn is in charge of Guardians of the Galaxy. You can kind of, if you're familiar with Taika Waititi's work, Taika Waititi was all over Thor. This is another one of those movies where people are going to remember who directed it specifically because his signature style is all over it.
Oh, sure. And this, Phil, tell me if I'm wrong here. Isn't this his first Marvel project since Spider-Man 3?
It is.
It's been a long time. Was there a reason why he's not been back? Does anybody know the answer to that? Because I don't think I know the answer to that.
Probably because he was pissed off that the studio forced him to include Venom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see him being burned out. Doing that trilogy probably was a big undertaking for him. And, there's a lot of well-known stories about the studio meddling that went into Spider-Man 3, which was still a financially successful movie. It just was critically panned.
Yeah, that falls on the shoulders of Avi Arad, is the story I've always heard, is that it was him pressuring Sam to put the character in. He said the fans they want Venom. And Sam's like, yeah, but wait, he's not in the film. How do I shoehorn this guy in? It's too early. We're building to that. Let's just build to it. And he's like, nah, let's put him in now. You could tell, you can feel it in that movie too. You can feel that things don't match, things don't fit. If you didn't know the story, then you heard the story after, we're like, oh, that explains why it felt chaotic. I mean, it did feel chaotic. There's chaos in this movie too, guys, but in a good way. I mean, there's so much going on. If you're directing a Marvel film, You got a lot of balls to juggle, man. So good luck keeping them all in the air at one time. Um, Chris, how do you think Sam did in terms of all the things he had to cover in this film? There's a lot of ground to cover. How do you think he did in those terms? Do you think there was anything that maybe should have had a little bit more focus, or do you think everything is pretty well balanced out?
I think it was a well balanced movie. I think going into it, a lot of people just knew, like, oh, this is just going to deal with more multiverse stuff. But I'm not sure if anybody really had an expectation of what was going to come out of that specifically. Like, we knew we'd get America Chavez. We knew we'd get a couple of cameos that were probably going to die right away, and spoiler alert, they did. But beyond that, I think a lot of people went into this not really knowing, because they don't even really completely spoil that Wanda is like the antagonist of this movie in most of those trailers. So a lot of people probably went into this being like, who's the real big bad? Are they manipulating Wanda? Blah blah blah. So yeah, I think it was smart for them not to give everything away in the trailer, so when people went into it there was a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to get into that, and I really want to dive into the Scarlet Witch stuff. So let's get to this cast because I'm ready to dive into it. Benedict Cumberbatch, of course, is Doctor Strange, Doctor Stephen Strange. Um, and Phil, we've said this before here on the 6M, I'm sure more than one time. And it's at this point, it's a comment that kind of is fairly generic because we've made it about Robert Downey, we've made it about Chadwick Boseman, and several others. But Cumberbatch absolutely is Doctor Strange. He absolutely is. I mean, if he had not got the part and you still saw Cumberbatch in Hollywood, you'd say, well, maybe he should have got it. He's the right height. He's the right presence. He's the right acting chops. He's the right everything. The guy's insanely talented. I mean, he owns this role. Phil, in your opinion, is this the best that his best performance as Doctor Strange to date was maybe in this film?
Um, I definitely think this is the most they allow Benedict Cumberbatch to do like legitimate
Mhm.
acting. Because he got to do so much more dramatic acting in this one. Um, but I would argue, and I actually said this right after the movie came out, that fully formed Doctor Strange is possibly the best MCU character. All of his fight scenes look dynamic. I feel like his look is perfect. I just think like beyond like the original six, he's one of the best additions to the MCU.
Yeah, and you know what? We have talked about that here before about who's the most fully formed character from start to finish in his entire story. That's a good call, man. Chris, we gush over Cumberbatch quite a bit, but the guy deserves it. I mean, when the day comes that he decides, hey, I love doing this, but I want to do something else, I mean, you just retire that character, right? This is not somebody you recast unless your hand is just forced because he's just so darn good at it.
I mean, he said in an interview recently that he wants to play Doctor Strange for another 10 years if Marvel will let him.
Well, I'm down.
So, yeah, me too. I mean, he's gotten so much better at faking the American accent from the first movie. The first movie, it's a little uneven and wonky, and in this movie, you don't even notice it. It's just, it sounds like that's his voice. So that was a big improvement. But yeah, Cumberbatch is one of the better casting choices, I think, in all of the MCU because Doctor Strange is one of those characters you can't just stick anybody in there. Like, there's a lot of people who could have played Captain America, but I feel like Doctor Strange, just because of the magic of it, because he's a little bit of a weirder character with certain aspects, it was good to get somebody who actually is like, a thespian and really knows how to dig deep into those acting moments. And in this, we get to see him play multiple versions of Strange, and they all come across as completely different people, which I think is a credit to his acting ability for sure.
Oh, I 100% agree with that. Um, Phil, what's your take on Chris's notion that Chris is not necessarily bagging on Chris Evans here, I'm sure, but what's your take on that the Doctor Strange character requires a little bit more oomph as opposed to a Captain America? Do you agree with that?
I think it does, but I also think that there's certain things about Captain America. Um, it's not as easy to pull off as
Mm.
it seems, and I think Chris Evans brought a lot of things to the role that um, I don't know. He just embodies the character at this point, at both on film and off film at this
I
point.
agree, 100%. And we've covered that too before when we covered the Cat trilogy. Um, I'm not trying to rush through that, but I want to get to Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda because I have a bone to pick with both of you and with everybody listening. Explain to me and give it to me because maybe I'm missing it. Explain to me why she couldn't just conjure up two more children. Why did she have to, if she's got all the power of the Scarlet Witch, did it just make her deranged? Did it make her blind to it? She could have just done it again. So what's the big deal? Why does she have to go to another Earth, Chris? Why does she have to go somewhere else to take someone else's children from them?
I chalk it up to she might not have necessarily meant to do it the first time, so it's not just a spell she knows how to cast again. It kind of seemed like one of those things that was a subconscious move, just like creating Westview in general came out of her tragedy, not necessarily a desire to control a whole town. So to me, for her, it's like, okay, those kids weren't really real, but they felt real. And now I have all this information that tells me that they're in all these other universes. So I'm just going to go find one of them. And I understand why some people are like, it doesn't feel consistent, blah, blah, blah. But to me, it does, because I never really saw her as being truly heroic at the end of WandaVision anyway. Like, she did all that stuff, and then she's just like, all right, guys, I'm going to go hang out in a field for a little while now. No repercussions, right? Cool.
Yeah, I think the biggest tell about her not truly being 100% heroic is in the season finale, and she goes, "I'm sorry," and Agatha goes, "No, you're not. You're cruel." And then she just kind of smirks at her like, "Maybe."
Good call, Chris. By the way, that explanation is just top notch because I didn't get that from the film, and I don't think I would have bumped into it if at some point Strange or someone had said to her, "Look, you conjured them before. Why don't you just do it again?" And one throwaway line could have been, "Don't you think I've tried and I can't?" Like to me, that would have answered it. Phil, did you run into that at all, or did it matter to you that much?
I didn't really bump into that because I really felt like for the entire movie, she's being manipulated by the Darkhold, and then I think she is also doing a lot of things out of this obsession and this need to be a mother. And I think the thing that they did very well with her is her waking up from the dream and knowing that her kids are alive somewhere. And it's just like falling asleep and waking up every night and knowing, that your kids are alive somewhere. It's got to be it's got to be horrible. And so I think, she just got to a point like, no, they're somewhere and I'm going to find them.
That's great. That's a good point. Well, listen, that's the first thing I ran into. The second thing I ran into is I don't think she mentioned Vision. She mentioned him one time when Strange asked her about the possibility of the multiverse. We didn't see him. We didn't hear from him. We know the White Vision's out there somewhere from the streaming series. Um, does anyone have an issue with? I mean, should he have shown up to maybe bring her back to her senses? I mean, what are they saving it for? Are they saving it for season two? I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think is the reason that he wasn't included in this film at all?
I think the end of WandaVision is very clearly about her dealing with her grief over Vision. And I've seen people go that the movie erased her character development. I don't think it did at all. I think that the entire point of that series was to get her to grieve and move on and accept that Vision was gone. And I know what you're saying. There's White Vision, but that's not her Vision.
Right.
It's not Vision to her.
Chris, what about that? What about the idea that maybe the film has negated her character development, or maybe it's not what should have happened? I mean, what say you on that? Do you think it fits with the character?
I mean, like Phil said, that's not her vision, so I didn't really see it as being a thing where like he would be super invested in the outcome. Like, even though he has all the old Vision's memories, he's kind of a brand new person again. So that never really bothered me. And plus, as the movie was going, when it got to like the hour and a half mark and there was only maybe 25 minutes left, I really got worried that I'm like, man, I really hope that we don't just have like a Deus Ex Machina and Vision just comes in and talks her down. Like, I want this to be something with these characters that we just watched for 2 hours, and I was really glad that that is how it concluded. So ultimately, I think if they'd brought in Vision and he was what ended up turning the tide in the end, it would have felt a little cheap.
You know what? I'll take that. It does kind of feel like cheap pop, I guess. I totally get that. I'm okay with that. Yeah, those are the two biggest things. There was a couple others, but nothing I lost any sleep over. It's just these were the two majors that I was kind of like came away from going, I don't know about this. I thoroughly enjoyed the film. If I've made that clear, I thoroughly enjoyed it. There was a lot of moments of, oh my God, which if a movie can get me to do that, and honestly, full disclosure, a lot of Marvel films can get me to do that. But to be fair, I'm an overgrown man child. It's who I am. So I've accepted it. Let's jump through the rest of this cast. Chiwetel Ejiofor is Carl Mordo. We only got him, Phil, for a very, very short time. You forget how good he is until he's on screen. You're like, oh my God, this guy's so good. He has a presence that good luck holding the screen with Cumberbatch. But man, I'm anxious to see him come back as the heavy and for real in a big bad way. What do you think about Ejiofor in this film?
I thought it was good. Man, it's crazy because the cast of this movie is very good, and I feel like going into this movie, I figured, because Cumberbatch is seen as like the thespian. You think that they're all going to be in his presence and trying to keep up with him. I kind of felt like Elizabeth Olsen stole this movie for a lot of the movie. She was doing some fantastic acting, and I don't mean to just bring that up in the middle of talking about Mordo, but it's just glaring for most of the movie. She is doing some tremendous acting, and I mean, I thought Mordo was good in the moments he was in, but everybody is kind of like trying to keep up with either Cumberbatch or Olsen.
Yeah, 100% agree. Totally. Chris, what about Ejiofor? Do you think he will be the heavy in the next Doctor Strange film? It only makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, do you think they could pivot away from that and go with somebody else, perhaps?
We just saw Clea introduced, so they can always go the Dormammu route. There's so many different characters. Nightmare was rumored to be the antagonist of this originally, so I don't know if they have to go to Mordo, but I would love it if they did. But it has to be our Mordo. It can't be this one from the other universe that is the only Illuminati member left alive. Although it would be interesting if the two Mordos teamed up because they both have a different gripe. Like, the other Mordo is probably pissed because he's like, you brought this woman to my universe and she just killed all my friends. And the Mordo from our universe already has his gripe with Doctor Strange, so two Mordos against one Strange would certainly be an interesting way to do it. But I love Chiwetel Ejiofor. He is such a great actor. I tell anybody about who will listen, like, go watch Kinky Boots, because it's one of the funniest things that guy's ever done. And seeing him in this movie play like a slightly different version, but ultimately kind of the same guy, was interesting because you don't really know if Strange was right about him like turning on that Doctor Strange too. Because he's like, for all I know, you gave Strange the Darkhold. And then it just sort of devolves into a fight from there. But right at the end, when Strange runs away from Mordo, who's left in that little, like, I guess that ditch in that room that exists for some reason, he's like, I'm starting to understand why your Mordo didn't like you. And I was just like, maybe he did actually get along with Strange. Like, it was very vague whether he was a bad guy too, or he was actually altruistic.
Right.
But I love Chiwetel. I think he did a great job in this movie, and the fact that they kept his character alive felt very intentional.
Oh, that's a good call too. Why leave him alive? Why not kill him? Oh, I like that. I like that a lot, actually. That makes a lot of sense. Why not just kill him?
Right, everybody else died. I mean, it would have been a spectacular death of Wanda and him exchanging spells, I'm sure, but yeah, leaving him alive feels like something that they're like, we need that one guy still. Everybody else, wipe him out.
Right. let's see. We got Benedict Wong as Wong. He is the Sorcerer Supreme now. And guys, correct me if I'm wrong, either one of you. Is this the first time we hear the words Earth 616? Because I believe it is.
Yes.
Awesome.
I can't remember if it ever appeared in What If, but I believe in live action, definitely.
Very cool. I was very happy to hear that. But yeah, Wong is great. I don't need to spend a whole lot of time on this guy. He's awesome. And what's cool is he doesn't look the type. He's not ripped. He's not, 6'3". He's not dashingly good looking. But and obviously he can't do magic, right? But like when you see him, he has a presence all his own. And it's a little bit of humor, but it's also he has that focus on his face, I think he fits perfect. I don't know what other Wong we could have seen possibly, but I just can't imagine it being anybody but him. And he's realistic as a main character. Like if for the next Avengers team, whatever that looks like, if he were an Avenger, I would be totally fine with that because he absolutely fits.
Yeah, Wong was great, and getting to see him fight at the beginning and during the big battle scene with Wanda was excellent. Like, I really like how they've expanded his character outside of that first Doctor Strange movie. Like, the little stuff he did in Shang-Chi was so fun. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I love Wong, and I really hope we get to see more of him. And I'm pretty sure he's set for one of these upcoming Disney Plus series to make an appearance, so that'll be fun.
That's right, yeah. I'm looking forward
Probably She-Hulk, because they already tied him to Abomination in some way, so I could totally see him showing up being like, hey, Tim Roth, we got this other fight. Oh, hey, Mark Ruffalo, I'm just going to get going, guys. And just, like, walk back out his portal or something. Like, I would pop so hard for a moment like that.
That's good. I like that. So, yeah, we've got Wong here, which is awesome. Phil, we've got also, and when we've already touched on a little bit, America Chavez, Xochitl Gomez, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm going to give you my take before I give everybody else's. I think she's great. I think she looks the part. I love the dimension when she opens the portal and it's the stars. It's on one hand, it's incredibly freaking hokey, but the CG to me looks outstanding, and it's like fierce, and it's just in your face, and it just looks really good. So I have no problem with any of that. What I ran into was I just don't think she was fleshed out to the point that I cared about her too much, because at the end of the day, her main mission is, well, I got to get home. Cool, but what else? Like, I know you're trying to control the power, but I'm not getting anything else from this. I'm not really. You guys tell me how you think. Phil, what do you think about not so much the actress, because again, I think she did a fine job, but what about the story of this character? For me personally, I needed more from this.
I mean, she's essentially Rogue in the first X-Men movie in this movie, in the sense that the big bad is chasing her and trying to use her powers for her scheme. That's her whole purpose in the movie.
Well done.
But no, I think the actress is great. I think she looks very similar to America Chavez in the comics. Marvel does do this thing where they seem to cast a lot of light-skinned, non-white actresses, which is kind of strange to me, because she is darker in the comics. But that didn't really take me out of the movie. It's just something I've noticed. Yeah, but I think she was good. I think the depiction of her powers is exactly how it is in the comics. I like little touches like her jacket saying "Amor es amor," which is love is love, and that points to her character being bisexual, I think, in the comics.
Yeah, she is actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought that this was a good start for that character. Clearly, she's going to be back for Young Avengers or whatever else.
Chris, what's your take on America Chavez? Do you think that was her story fleshed out enough? I mean, to Phil's point, and an excellent point, she's basically just a plot device. I mean, could we have gotten a little bit more with this character?
Sure, we could have, but this is not her movie. I mean, to me, this is Doctor Strange's movie. It's her introduction, sure, but it's not Doctor Strange and America Chavez go on a bogus adventure. It's it's Doctor Strange, and like Phil says, she's Rogue in X-Men. Like, she's a plot device, but I don't necessarily think that's always a bad thing. I would have loved to get a little more development, but the limited amount of stuff that they did with her like the little conversation about food in each universe, giving us the little Bruce Campbell cameo. That was really fun. Like, I think they did enough with her dialogue to give us an idea of who this girl is and what she believes, but not enough of the backstory to maybe satisfy calling this an origin story. So I feel like sometime down the line, we're going to get more information on her, more development, and that'll be where the character really takes off. But for right now, this is just her introduction. And we have to remember, you know, Scarlett Johansson's introduction in Iron Man 2 was a glorified cameo. Same thing with Rhodey. And, like, you know, this is kind of how some characters get their start. Doctor Strange is one of a few exceptions who the first time you see him is in his own movie. A lot of other characters were introduced in other places. So to me, it's just that's how Marvel is doing it. It's a long form cameo, basically.
Yeah. I mean, they've introduced most of the characters that are going to end up in Young Avengers this way as kind of like a side character. So it made sense to me. And I mean, the only thing that I wish that it didn't get pushed back, because man, when you know she was supposed to be in Spider-Man, it's like, yeah, it makes more sense for her to be in No Way Home.
Oh, I love that concept. I love that idea. It does make more sense for her to be in that film.
I wonder what the plan was with her in Spider-Man.
Oh, she was supposed to open the portals to introduce the other Spider-Man.
Hey, I can go get the Spider-Man who would have fought these villains in their universe? That was the whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
She was supposed to open the portals for them instead of Ned. And they changed it to Ned when Doctor Strange got pushed back.
Gotcha, okay.
Interesting.
So did she film scenes?
She's in the concept art.
Huh, wow. I wonder how far along that got.
That's cool.
Interesting.
I did not know that.
I am curious to see where she shows up next.
Yeah, I mean, like you guys said, there's Young Avengers is definitely an option. Tom Clark's 6M podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark's 6M podcast sent you. You know, I'm going to be straight with you. I don't know if we go with Young Avengers. I think we just go with Avengers. I mean, Thor could always be a part of it. I mean, Doctor Strange could always be a part of it. But why not have it where it's like, okay, we're Avengers, but man, these three are kids, and that's kind of a running joke. But then those kids have to be the ones that sort of save everybody in the third act. But
I mean, by the time they get around to it, none of these people are going to be kids anymore.
Great call.
So like all new, all different Avengers, where it was like kind of a mix of adults and kids.
I mean, to Chris's,
maybe they'll just do a wink and a nod and call themselves the Ultimate Avengers as like a reference to the Ultimates universe.
I love it. To Chris's point, man, like Tom Holland's like 51 now. You know what I mean? It's been a while since he's nice. But
sorry to go off topic. Did you guys see Uncharted?
I did.
I really don't know how much range Tom Holland's really great at what he does, but man, if he doesn't just kind of come off as the same person in everything I've ever seen him in, it's always enjoyable. But I heard somebody say like he is a young Mark Wahlberg and that you're always going to get the same thing out of him, and I'm kind of like, yeah, that might be true.
Yeah, I mean, it's
I find that highly offensive nonsense.
I mean, what other stuff? I can't even really think of anything else I've seen him in besides those two things, so I don't have a lot to compare it to. But
me neither.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I just Wahlberg, really Wahlberg. Whoa. Let's not get into what I think of Wahlberg.
You got a problem with Marky Mark? Is that what I'm hearing? Jeez.
Tom Holland's going to release a rap album rapping in his underwear.
Hey, listen, if you're going to listen, you can rip on Marky Mark, but you leave the Funky Bunch out of this, okay? Oh, it's my destiny one day to have a posse that I'm going to refer to as the Funky Bunch. So there you go.
I'd be curious to know if anybody, I'm sure somebody's taken that for the name of a podcast already.
Oh, I have no doubt. And if they haven't, they will now. So yeah, that's my dream. Hey, you guys play your cards right. You can be part of my Funky Bunch. I can't even say that without laughing.
Oh my
Oh
god.
man, that's good stuff. Well, before this becomes the Marky Mark hour, let's see. Rachel McAdams. Shifting gears here, Chris. I'm gonna throw you a curveball here. Is she becoming just as important to Doctor Strange, if not more so, than Pepper Potts is for Tony Stark?
That's an interesting comparison, but I think their relationship is obviously going to be very different moving forward. They started as lovers, and now they're on a friendly basis, and vice versa. And part of the movie that we watched here really feels like it's supposed to help Strange move on from that relationship. So I think that it'll be more of a mutual thing. And if I'd love it if she stuck around because she was great in this movie. Rachel McAdams is one of those actresses that I feel has been given a lot of roles that did not allow her to act as well as she can act. And this movie, I felt like, allowed her to actually do more and show a little bit more emotion. And so I was very happy with how her role developed in this, and I would love it if she stuck around. But Rachel McAdams is one of those actresses that she's always going to be in demand for something, I think. So, and plus they're doing another one of these Sherlock Holmes movies, so if scheduling complicates things, that could totally prevent her from being in another one. But I hope we see her again because she's great.
She is great. Phil, I find it funny that the egotist of the Marvel Universe, the self-absorbed, narcissistic weapons dealer, ended up married and happy with a child, but the guy that sort of had his life turned around, lost the use of his hands, came crashing back down to earth in a big bad way, and now is a sorcerer and can conjure up anything he wants at any time. Can't seem to get the girl that he obviously still loves to a certain degree. It's funny how that worked out for both these characters.
Um, well, I think this movie pretty much lays out that Doctor Strange is pretty narcissistic himself, and he is kind of an egomaniac. Um, and I really like the subtle things they did with his character to show, like, no, like he feels like he has to do everything, and he feels like he has to have the last say. But there's a reason why, like them going back and talking about his sister, which was such a small Easter egg that they threw in there. And really explaining that he lost his sister and he couldn't save her, and that's why he feels like he has to save everybody. That's why he went into being a surgeon and doing it in such a way that it wasn't like he cared about his patients. It was just like, nope, I'm the best at this. I'm gonna save this person's life. I don't really care about them, but I'm the best at this job. Nobody else can do it but me. And I noted this to somebody else because they were like, well, Wanda's the biggest villain in the movie. And I was like, yeah, but in every other universe you go to, they're like, we're not worried about her. We're worried about Strange. You are the problem.
And is she not correct when she calls him out on the double standard of like, you break the rules and you're a hero and I do it and I'm a villain? I love
She's
that
absolutely
exchange.
correct.
I love that exchange so much. And the little inflection Elizabeth put on, that doesn't seem fair. Like it was one of my favorite moments in the whole movie. She's so good.
So
Yeah, no, she was absolutely right about it.
you're forcing me to circle back to this because you just hit on something else that I've had in my head about Wanda's character. We're all wrestling guys here. When someone turns heel and it doesn't feel right, you know it. You just know it. And that person can be the best on the mic you've ever seen. But if they can't sell it, then you come away from it going, that dude's not a heel. He shouldn't be a heel. Why are they doing this for him? He should be babyface. Is she a believable heel? Because she's flat out heel in this movie. It doesn't matter how she justifies it. She's doing bad stuff. I mean, is she believable in this role to you, Phil? Not her as an actress, but I'm saying that is the character, does the story arc make sense that she's going this bad this quick?
Well, I don't read her as a villain in this movie. She's more of like an antagonist. Um, I think that it works, given everything that she's been through. I think if you consider everything that Wanda has been through from Age of Ultron up, then everything she's doing makes sense. Because everything has been taken away from her, and I mean, she says in this movie outright, nobody sacrificed more than I did. And she kind of has a point. And it's not just that nobody sacrificed as much as her, but nobody really tried to help her. And I think that that's kind of the big issue in this movie is that now that she's a problem, everybody now Strange wants to show up and go, hey, well, you can't do this, but he knew what happened in Westfield, and he didn't show up and try and help her. And I say all the time, Tony did nothing to help her. He knew that he killed her parents. He did nothing.
Yeah. Wow. Deep cut. No, you're right. 100% right. Chris, is she believable? Like Phil said, does the story arc make sense for her here?
Absolutely, and I think they did a good job establishing that even though she wanted to do something that might be construed as evil, she definitely was going to kill America Chavez to take those powers. She kept telling people, like, I'm trying to be reasonable. Let me be reasonable. And they're like, no, we're going to stop you. She's like, all right, I'm going to kill all you then. Like, so I don't think that she's as straightforward of a villain as somebody like, Warmonger from the first Iron Man. So like, for me, she could easily be redeemed later, or you take her down a darker path. Either way, we all know she's not dead. You don't see the body. She's not dead. I'm sorry. Like, this is Marvel. She's coming back at some point. And when she does, I'm going to be very curious to see what it is. And I almost kind of hope it's in the Agatha series, honestly. But I could see them using that to just focus on Catherine Hahn because she's so phenomenal as that character that she deserves her own thing.
But see, I think certain stuff like her wanting to kill Chavez, I think it's so important that they show us very early in the movie that Strange wanted to kill her as well.
Yes. Even though his was like, I don't think I have any other option. In order to save everybody, I gotta kill you. It's still definitely makes you understand why she's hesitant to trust him at first.
Yeah, I just think it makes her point stronger when she says, like, you're willing to do things to cost somebody else's life. You just will say that there's good intentions behind it. Well, what makes your intentions better than mine? Because I'm just trying to put my family back together.
Yeah. I mean, Vision's death. And, honestly, to Phil's point, this all connects back to what happened to her and her brother, then what happened to her brother, what happened to her country, what happened on the road to becoming an Avenger, and after the fact, what she accidentally did in Avengers or in Civil War. Yeah.
Civil War?
Yeah, you're right. Everything, it's like connected dots with her. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, even when you look at Civil War, it's like, yeah, she made that big mistake, but I just thought it was incredibly insulting. I don't want to dump all over Tony in this movie. I thought it was incredibly insulting for Tony to go and come, oh, we got to be in check now after he unleashed this murderous robot on the world. And then when Wanda makes a mistake, it's like, all right, well, we got to lock her away because we don't know what she's going to do. Sir, several villains in this universe are your fault.
Several villains that have existed since you've died are still your fault, sir.
Man.
Yes, Tony Stark is responsible for the most villains in Marvel right now. Man. By a long stretch.
Let the dead rest, guys. Come on. Tony's no longer with us. Come on now.
I just always thought that was a very cowardly thing to do in Civil War to essentially say that Wanda needs to be put away, and then he didn't even go and talk to her and explain why she needed to be put away. He sent Vision to do it.
And you know what? To everything you just said, I think it was pretty clear during Civil War that Cap was on the right side.
Have a product or a service that you want to get out into the world? Always wanted to try your hand at podcasting but don't know where to start? We've got you covered. Pod for Hire is a podcast production company that offers turnkey services to fit your needs. We produce your show from start to finish, allowing you the valuable time you require to focus on your established clients as well as prospective clients. We pride ourselves on delivering a top-notch product that will set your business apart from the rest and give your company the exposure it deserves. For more information, give us a call at 1-828-800-9880 or email us at info@podforhire.com. Pod for Hire. We take the work out of podcasting.
And I don't know if it was slanted intentionally that way. I think it was slanted more toward like, hey, you make the decision as an audience member. Who are you on? Whose side are you on? But the whole time I'm watching that movie, and since I've watched it 100 times since then, I'm always on Cap's side because Cap's 100% right. Like I could never side with
He
Tony in that.
he is right until he lied to
Very
Tony.
true. Very true.
When he lied, that made it like, okay, but, and I think that again, to Wanda's point in this movie, it's like, well, you all do the same thing. You all go and decide that you are the one that gets to decide when you can break the law, when it's for somebody that you care for and for somebody that you want to still be here. I mean, Cap broke the laws of time and space to go and get a second chance with Peggy, and nobody had a problem with that.
Yeah. Wow. Good call. Hey, speaking of Peggy, I can't wait to get here. Earth 838. This is some fun stuff because we all knew that Sir Patrick Stewart was going to be in this film as Professor Charles Xavier. He most definitely was. We didn't know about Black Bolt, at least I didn't. I didn't know that Mordo was going to be involved here. I didn't know that Captain Marvel was going to be involved here. And we all heard about the rumors of John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic. Seeing the Illuminati on the big screen is one of those moments that I think Marvel absolutely hit it out of the park. I'm gonna throw a bunch of stuff at you guys here. Professor X with the yellow wheelchair and the little hint of the X-Men animated series from the 90s. Are you kidding me? Like, Chris, there's so much fun stuff in just that introductory scene alone that made the movie for me in a lot of ways right there. And by the way, Captain Carter, forgot Captain Carter. Dude, talk to me about this scene and how freaking glorious it was.
Well, as one of the people who was calling for a live-action Captain Carter after What If, this made me extremely happy. Granted, this isn't our universe's Captain Carter because we don't have a Captain Carter, so the fact that she died doesn't really matter because they could just go pull one from another universe. Mm-hmm. But I thought she did excellent. She looked great in the suit. She looked great doing all the action. Haley Atwell is just fantastic in everything. And I really hope this is not the last time we see it, but if it is just a one-time thing and that's it, like, I think they did a good job with it. One thing that I was almost hoping they would establish was that terrible Inhumans show was from this other universe, and that's why it's the same Black Bolt. But seeing Black Bolt in like a almost perfect comics accurate costume, I'm like, with the dumb little fork on his head, like, I was just like, man, they really went for it with this movie, and you got to give them credit because there was such a long period of time where they're like, we can't do the exact comic book costume, guys, but we'll get as close as possible. And now they're like, which exact look would be best for this movie? You know, like, yeah. It's so great.
We've done Justice League here before, and we talked about how Momoa is freaking incredibly fun to watch. Seems like the best dude bro you could meet. He generally seems like a good cat, and I enjoy his work, but he's not Aquaman, my humble opinion. And it's not because, well, Aquaman's drawn as a white guy with blonde hair. That's not really it to me personally. But on the flip side, Marvel will, if they don't, and it's race, I don't care about any of that. But like to your point, Chris, the costume could have been entirely different. But it mattered enough to them to say, no. Let's get it as close, like you said, let's get as close as we can. Whereas other certain comic book universes are like, let's just change everything. And while you've got fans who've been buying the books their whole lives going, yeah, but that's not, what are you doing? I mean, Marvel to me tends to almost always, not, I was gonna say go by the book, that's not what they're doing, but they tend to always pay a little bit more attention to characters, if nothing else.
Yeah. No, this scene was great. I think that they did a great job of doing literal fan service because this was the casting people wanted for for Mr. Fantastic. This was there was a large subset of fans that is like, Carol is not the real Captain Marvel because, of course, there was a black Captain Marvel before that. They gave us that in the scene. They gave us Professor X. They gave us comic accurate Black Bolt. And then they gave us Peggy in costume. So it was huge fan service. And then they were like, ha ha ha, we gave you all what you wanted. Now shut up because Wanda's going to kill all of them. Don't ever ask us for anything again, you ungrateful clowns.
Which
Leave
it
us
all
alone.
that all popped me too. Like I was so on board for all that, and I know we talked about this when we recorded with Graham, Phil, but Black Bolt's death is one of the craziest things in this entire movie. How she does it, take it like what mouth, and then you just see him explode his own head trying to talk. Like, oh, so
Listen,
good.
it's so good. I mean, that one liner is great, the what mouth. But I think, man, it's just, I cannot say enough how great Elizabeth Olsen is in this movie because she does all of the stuff that, like, all of the sassiness to the character in this movie, like, she just nails it. Um, it's just, man, her just going one by one and killing all of them. It's so good. And I know some people are gonna be like, oh, they jobbed out to her, but um, I think they drastically underestimated her for one thing. And then you can't tell me that she was strong enough to almost kill Thanos by herself, but she would have have a problem with them, and they needed to use the Darkhold to kill Thanos.
Ooh.
The only complaint I could bring up is the Captain Marvel we've been introduced through can fly through a giant ship that Thanos is piloting, but this one got taken out by a statue falling on her. I get that complaint. I do. Because it's like she shouldn't have been that easy to take out. And maybe the fact that she was just buried means she's not dead. Maybe they didn't intend it to be a death. I don't know. But that was one of the few things where I was like, that doesn't feel weighted properly.
One of the things that really jumped out at me was when she got into Professor X's head, or he attempted to get into hers, and then suddenly she comes in from behind him out of the red smoke and snaps his neck. Like, this is absolutely Sam Raimi's movie. From that all the way to the zombie Doctor Strange, which is a little nod to Marvel zombies, to that universe, to that world. Such good stuff. Man,
Man,
insane.
such a good visual of him using all of those damn souls and turning it into a big fish.
Oh,
So cool.
And what a swerve that it wasn't Zombie Strange. It was just our Strange inhabiting his body temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everybody thought from the trailer, like, he's going to fight Zombie Strange. And it's like, nope, that's actually our guy.
Yeah, I love the line of he doesn't have to be alive, and then we all connect the dots that it's the Strange from the beginning of the movie, and then he comes up with a cloak, and Wanda gives the great line, "Dream walking hypocrite."
Yeah.
Should we have seen the zombie world, the zombie world, Chris? What do you think? Did we miss out on that?
No, and I'm actually glad we're going to talk about this. So when they were bouncing from universe to universe in that one scene, I was looking and I'm like, I don't see any of the universes from that we would know from like What If. And even the cartoon one looked significantly different, and that actually made me happy because it's like they distinctly decided, let's make all new things for this to look at. So like one of them is very apocalyptic, one of them looks like almost a futuristic utopia, one of them is just paint.
Yeah.
Like, it was all crazy, and all those effects, like you guys were saying earlier, like it really helped them up the level of trippiness of this movie without having to rely on the same tricks as the first movie. Like, the fact that this movie feels so visually distinctly different from the first one, I think is a great achievement.
Oh, for sure, yeah. What about hey Phil? What about Ultron being the tech that they have, and they were even using the name Ultron in that on Earth 838.
Oh, I have to imagine that Wanda showed up there and saw and saw all the Ultron bots and just like really
Lost
and
it.
just enjoyed destroying all of them. And I mean, I like the fact that she was like soaked in their oil coming out of there, like she just like annihilated them.
What a smart way to do that without making it blood too, because they could never get away with making it that kind of a bloody scene in Marvel, but it's just robot oil, so you get that visual without the violence behind it. I thought that was brilliant.
And plus, it looked to me, and I'm sure it was part of the lighting. And Chris, to your point, the oil on her face, her hair, the lighting, the look in her eyes, the bags under her eyes. But it occurred to me, she's almost looking like a zombie right now herself, which is like the power of the Scarlet Witch is corrupting her. And I thought that was a nice touch. Whether that was the intention or not, I'm sure it was to some degree, but that's how it hit me.
I think it absolutely was, because her fingertips were starting to turn black, just like Agatha's, which was like, that's the Darkhold's influence kind of showing itself. Now, why does Strange grow a third eye after using it once, and she was using it for months? Was she just hiding that third eye beneath her crown? Like,
Ooh.
I kind of was just curious, but I loved how the movie just ended with him like, ah, and then the eye just opens. Like, that felt very Sam Raimi to me too.
Yeah.
That was a very Sam Raimi ending.
Yeah, because like literally one of the Evil Dead movies ends with like a bunch of monsters showing up to his place of work, and he's like, oh, time to go back to work, and then it's just over. Like, I love that stuff.
The third eye, did you guys bump into that? Because I'm going to be honest with you. At the end, I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know if I'm okay with it, or if it's hokey, if it's silly. Like, I don't know how I feel about it. What do you guys think? Does the third eye make sense now for Doctor Strange, or what? What do you think, Phil?
Well, because the Illuminati is straight out of Bendis introduced it the first time in New Avengers, but it was used the second time with the incursion stuff that they used in the comic in Hickman's run. And in Hickman's run, Strange goes away and he learns like a different dark art, and he gets a third eye in that run. So I assumed that was part of why they used it.
Chris, too far out for you, or do you think it's fun?
I think it's fun. I mean, Doctor Strange is one of the few Marvel characters that you can do goofy stuff like that with, because it's all based around magic, which has zero limitations. It's all your imagination. So to me, it's like, yeah, that's a Sam Raimi thing to end the movie on a note like that, and I thought the visual looked good. So I'm for it. I'm kind of curious why they did that right at the end and then had another like post-credit scene. But I don't know. I like that, to me, would have probably been a better like thing to kind of tag the movie with at the end.
Yeah, I mean, we could get into why the CG of the eye didn't look great.
I agree, actually.
It didn't look great, but I'm fine with the eye because, again, as Mordo always tells them, like, you think you could just do everything with magic and there's no consequence. Like, there's always a consequence.
I love that. I love that Marvel always makes an attempt to connect back to other films, to previous films. They don't leave, not that they've never done it, right? But they often pick up a plot line that was developed 10 years ago or whatever the case may be. And you're like, oh my God, I forgot about the guy saying that. I love that they continue to connect things like that, for sure. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it connects him to the Ancient One again, because you know the Ancient One was hiding whatever that scar was on the top of her forehead, kind of like because she was using dark magic, and I think it's just another thing to connect her to him in the sense that he's willing to do and make mistakes and do things that he probably shouldn't, just like she would have.
Yeah. One thing that we didn't see with all the rumors of the casting, and I actually missed it, and I really wanted to see it. And I'm not the guy sitting here in this chair going, I want Tom Cruise to be Iron Man from now on. I don't care about that. But I do think it would have been pretty cool to see Superior Iron Man, to see that world's Tony Stark. And if just for a moment, Chris, what do you think? Well, I mean, that would have been a cool moment, I think.
That would have been fun fan service for the people who know he was supposed to play Iron Man in the 90s, for sure. But I never really thought he was going to be in this movie, to be honest with you. Like, there was all those rumors, but the one thing in the trailer that people picked out where they're like, this could be Iron Man, I was like, it looks more like the effect they used for Captain Marvel, though. And that's what it ended up being. So, I don't know. Like, I don't think it was necessary. We got the Krasinski casting, which is funny when you hear the story that it was actually going to be Daniel Craig at first.
Ouch. No.
They were going to have Daniel Craig play Mr. Fantastic, and then that didn't work out. And then they were like, well, yeah, we can get Krasinski, I guess.
It wouldn't have worked out because it wouldn't have worked out. Because, oh my God. No offense against Daniel Craig, but damn.
It would have been a weird choice. And, you know, that leaves Craig open for a different role in the future. But, yeah.
I mean, John Krasinski is Reed Richards. I mean, I think he was phenomenal in the very short time he was on screen. The suit looked great. He looked great. He was so well spoken. I mean, that's Reed Richards to me. I mean, yeah. Phil, does this pump you up about a potential Fantastic Four? You're just so tired of seeing them screw it up. You're like, I don't care about it.
No, I think the fact that Hickman's touches were all over this makes me excited for them possibly using Hickman's Fantastic Four for movies, because I really enjoyed that run. And again, if they want to do anything, if they want to do like the Future Foundation stuff and like do any of like the stuff with the Baxter Building from that run, I would be all for that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot here to love. As we said at the beginning of this, kids, it's definitely a Sam Raimi film. There's jump scares, there's zombies, there's black magic, there's those scenes where the camera goes from one to the next and one to the next, and it's his trademarks, man, for sure.
there's his transitions, like that one with Wong when he's looking right into the screen, and then the rest of the screen kind of dissolves behind him. That is a Sam Raimi transition if I've ever seen
it.
It
is. And the shots where the camera kind of goes on its side, like panning downward. Yeah, no doubt.
Look, this guy is good at superhero fight scenes. That fight with Shuma Gorath, I knew they couldn't call him that in the movie, but that's basically who they were fighting. That fight is really, really good.
Oh my god, and it has the most gruesome thing in any Marvel movie when he rips that eye out.
Oh, yeah.
That's
really,
easily
really
the most gruesome thing I can think of in any MCU property that's not on Netflix.
Man, really, really great fight scene. Really inventive fight scene of Sinister Strange and R. Strange using the score of the movie to fight.
That was awesome. I was kind of afraid, and when it first started, I was kind of sitting there going, am I going to hate this? But the way they just kept plowing through it, I'm like, no, I kind of like this. I was kind of afraid it was going to be a miss for me, if I'm being honest.
That to me is like, that felt like something right out of a comic book that they would use. Like, the visual was so great, and the fact that not only did they make it really clear whose magic was what, but the fact that Sinister Strange's magic was purple, just like Agatha's was, because he's been using the Darkhold just like her, was such a nice little bit of continuity that they didn't even need to talk about. They just had it there, and the people who notice it are like, yeah, that's great.
That's nice.
Yeah. Man, but I think all the stuff they do with the Multiverse Stranges is so good, because it really paints the picture that Strange could be a bad decision away from doing exactly what Wanda's doing. And really, I like the way they handle just his mental health in this movie, of him, establishing early in the movie that him going, yeah, I'm happy. Of course I'm happy. And he's clearly not. And them establishing with the other Stranges, they made all of these terrible mistakes because they weren't happy.
What about okay, so we've got, I don't want to call it a precedent, but I'll call it that. The precedent was sort of maybe set in Far From Home, that on other worlds, it may not be the exact Peter Parker that you physically know. He's going to look different. His eyes will be a different color, he's a different height, he's a different voice. He'll have different DNA, perhaps. Who knows? But like in this movie, the evil Doctor Strange is still Doctor Strange. Is still Doctor Strange. It's still Cumberbatch. Do you guys think that that's a statement on the strength of the character and the fact that he's Sorcerer Supreme, or he was? Or is that just because they didn't want to recast the role for this film?
I just took it as in those universes he looked the same. Maybe in other universes he looked different.
Okay. Well, you know what? That's good enough, I guess. Because you never know how many universes there are, right? They never bother telling you that.
Yeah.
That's just how I read it. Infinite?
Is it? Wow.
I mean, because she literally said, like, every, your dreams are different universes, and Wong's like, so that dream where I'm running naked from a clown? She's like, yeah, that's happening to you somewhere. So, like, to me, that's one of those things where it's like, I don't think they'll ever put a limit on it. Like, didn't they do that in DC for a little while, where they're like, there's this many universes specifically?
52.
That's right. Okay, yeah. And then the new 52 stuff all started. That's right. Okay. Yeah. So I don't think Marvel's ever going to do that, because it would paint them into too much of a corner.
I agree with that.
Uh, yeah, and I mean they pretty much established with Loki and the TVA stuff that the multiverses are created by paradoxes, right? Once a time stream breaks off from the mainstream, it creates a multiverse.
Oh, good call. Oh. So we can't take this thing home without talking about the obvious question. Because, well, it's obvious to me. See what you guys think. Where's Kang, Chris? Where's he at?
Ant-Man 3.
Ah,
Kang, Kang is somewhere marveling at the fact that everybody is distracted by all this stuff that is happening by the multiverses going crazy. I I have to assume that Kang is going to be the big bad of the next few phases or something. Um, I don't think he's going to be done away with in Ant-Man. I think he's going to be still around in some other form.
and
Well, and that's what's great about Kang is like even if you kill one, there's like a billion other ones out there waiting in the wings.
like I know he's there, right? I know he's in that film. But I guess my biggest question coming out of this was, and I didn't get it till the end, but I'm like, wait a minute. If they're doing this universe jumping thing, where's Kang? Like his touches, where is he? How is he not in a throwaway scene or a cut scene or a very quick moment? I mean, it almost feels like this happens in spite of him and really has nothing to do with him at all.
I felt like it would have been a lot to try and put him in here with so many characters. Um, and I felt like this movie is just ramifications from other things with him, like the Loki stuff or other stuff. Yeah, I would have liked to see Kang show up, but I don't think this movie needed him.
And I think to the point of he's the big bad of the next few films, I would 100% am with that because Thanos is a much different villain than this guy. Kang, his big thing, in Loki was, go ahead, kill me, it's fine, but it's not gonna change anything. I already know what's gonna happen. You can't change anything. So he's not gonna be that mustache twirling, tired to the railroad tracks kind of villain because why do that? Why not be charming? Why not be polite? Why not be whatever? Because who cares? Because you can't stop him anyway. He already knows what's gonna happen. So it's a much different villain. Chris, I'm curious to see how that plays out, man, because it'll feel much different than Thanos, I believe.
There's periods in all different media, like the cartoons, the comics, where sometimes Kang's interests are aligned with the heroes. I honestly would not be surprised if his appearance in Ant-Man 3 wasn't as the main villain. Like, what if him and Ant-Man are actually working towards the same goal, and then the next time we see him, he's a villain? Like, I'd almost be more interested in that because Kang is a very complicated character. Like, he's a megalomaniac in some ways, but he does seem to have slightly better intentions than the people who just want to start wars and destroy stuff.
Right.
At least sometimes.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like a complex villain feel. We've talked about that in the MCU before. Complex villains. I enjoy that.
Yeah, I'm very curious what they're gonna do with the Kang stuff. I thought we were supposed to see Loki in this movie. Maybe I'm misremembering it, but I thought he was announced for this movie at one point.
Interesting. I don't think I know that.
Yeah, so I was kind of surprised he didn't show up.
I didn't know that. I didn't know he was announced for that.
I thought he was, unless I'm misremembering.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but maybe they decided, oh, we're just going to do a season 2 of Loki instead, and then they pulled it back.
Yeah. But again, we had so many characters in this thing. It not using Loki or not using Kang isn't the end of the world. I mean, we got so many characters here. I mean, just that Illuminati scene in itself is just such good fan service that I can't go, well, we didn't get Loki, so throw the whole thing away.
So we can't wrap this up without me leaving you with one big question. Well, it's big to me. Chris, let's assume Sam Raimi's down for more. What's the next movie you give him in the MCU?
Oh, man. I don't know how far they are into the production yet, but a Sam Raimi directed Blade movie would be killer.
Oh, wow. I kind of don't
I
hate
mean,
that.
just
Yeah.
just just the vampire genre seems like something he could. God, I'm gonna use the worst pun ever. Sink his teeth into. Um, like he he would kill that. Yeah, that would be great. And like, what are they doing with Blade, man? They cast Mahershala Ali like 40 years ago. What's going on?
These things take time, Chris. You can't rush.
Like, I know we had the cameo in Eternals where you just hear his voice, whoop-de-doo. So like, I think Blade would be of the franchises we know that are coming. Blade, if you're talking like absolutely anything, man, there's so many crazy characters in the comics that he could do good stuff with, but Werewolf by Night is probably, yeah, because they referenced him in Moon Knight, right?
They did.
So yeah, I think that might be a cool thing because that's like that's a character from their horror books. So give that to him.
Phil, I'm going to change the question up for you because this isn't fair. You had time to think about it. So I'm going to.
I mean, if you ask me, I was just gonna say Spider-Man.
Well, we'll just leave it there. Thanks for coming.
I mean, yeah. Hey, come on, give this guy another crack at Spider-Man. Okay, I would love.
I'm okay with that. I'm honestly okay with that. I'm totally okay with that. But here's what I was going to pose to you because I was going to try to switch it up and throw you a curveball. Give Sam Raimi a DC character. Who do you give him?
I think that he could do great things with a Dr. Fate movie, but I think like also something really weird like The Question, where he's like that would be really good as well. Where it's like a noir movie, but he's also doing like, I mean, if they wanted to give him like I mean, they've already done the what do you call it, the Constantine movie, but they could. That's another one. I mean,
I love The Question. I've always been a big fan of that character for sure.
make a Question show for HBO Max. DC, what's going on? Why are you guys not giving?
Give it to me. That's where the hits are for this universe. You guys know that their biggest hits have not been the major heroes. I mean, well, box office. I'm talking about reception, overall praise from critics and fans. It's the offbeat characters. It's the B-listers. Those are the ones that get the most love. I think Peacemaker's a hit, for God's sake. What? Like, absolutely give it The Question to HBO Max. I love that.
I think that's more because John Cena and James Gunn are so great, not necessarily because people give a shit about Peacemaker.
Well, that's fair.
You know what I mean? Like, they made you care about Peacemaker. Nobody cared about Peacemaker going into Suicide Squad.
No, and I that is again one of my marvels at this movie. No pun intended, is that they managed to get people to care about Wanda. And I'm telling you, when Age of Ultron came out, people did not like Wanda in that movie. And the fact that people care about Wanda now and people were upset enough that she turned into a villain in this movie, I think that's a win for them. I think that's a win for them and Elizabeth Olsen. And I've seen people go, there's no way you can redeem her.
I disagree.
They can. We've seen heroes in these movies do worse. Again, Tony is the poster child for making every mistake possible, and he was redeemed. You can absolutely redeem her. And
They've redeemed Loki after the Battle of New York just took place for his character.
Yeah, you can redeem characters, man. I mean, her whole character from beginning is that she's a flawed character. That's her character in the comics.
I mean, I think we're wrapping up this show with the idea that everybody hates Tony. I don't know where this come from. Freaking film, man.
I don't hate Tony. I just find it funny that people are just the people that I think say Wanda is so horrible. I'm like, Tony has done so much worse. He's done so much worse.
All in the name of being right. That's his character for sure.
I mean, he's spent years profiteering off of weapons. Yep. Like, good. And again, he was redeemed.
Which means everybody has a chance, Phil. Got to give people a chance. I'm just saying.
I think that's kind of the point of this movie as well, is that everybody is redeemable, and you have to give people a chance. I did not realize this until I saw somebody posted online, but that great Easter egg that they took from Days of Future Past of Professor Xavier telling Doctor Strange, everybody goes through something. Everybody loses their way. And that's a line directly from that movie. And again, it goes
It
to
is.
the end of the movie of him. He wasn't going to kill Wanda by the end of the movie because, no, everybody loses their way. He's seen it throughout this entire movie that he's a bad decision away from losing his way.
I picked up on that when he quoted the line. I knew where it came from. I remembered the line. It's well done. Well, there you have it, kids. This got a lot deeper than I thought it would, but in a really, really good way. That's why I love discussion like this, because it's fun, but it can be thought-provoking at the same time. So before we sign off here, Chris, if you can, try to sum it up for me. What is your last word on the Multiverse of Madness?
I think it's a really solid entry into the Marvel ongoing TV show known as the Cinematic Universe. This is a strong episode, but like, it's just a lot of fun. Like, this movie is just entertaining. Like, you're not gonna go into this and come away from it without enjoying at least half of what you saw, if not all of it. Like, this is one of those ones where I really don't understand how anybody might, like, I don't think it's gotten a lot of hate, but I just don't understand how anybody could go into this and be like, the movie was terrible. Like, there's so many good things in this movie to latch onto.
I agree. They do the right thing for the fans, for the old school fans, and for the new school fans, and they do the right thing for people who are only fans of the MCU, maybe never read a comic in their life. They satisfy every master here, which is, I mean, that's all you can hope for in any kind of big name property like this. Phil, what do you got? What's your last word here on the Multiverse of Madness?
I feel like this was everything I wanted it to be. I feel like it is a good depiction of Strange as a character. I mean, the fact that it is also Sam Raimi, and Sam Raimi has directed two of my favorite comic book movies at this point. It gave me everything I wanted. It gave me a nice bookend to the stuff with Wanda following WandaVision. I definitely think we'll see Wanda again, but again, it just did so many great things in 2 hours. Is it a perfect movie? No, I wouldn't say it's perfect. It has its flaws, but I think it is an incredibly fun movie.
I agree. I don't know how people out there listening feel when you got a podcast where everybody's on the same page, but when you talk about something that everybody kind of is on the same page with, loving to begin with, you're not going to get a whole lot of argument or disagreement. So if you're looking for that, you came to the wrong show. We're fanboys here, kids. That's why I keep saying I agree with these guys, because I do. It's good stuff, man. I did enjoy this. I'm with both you guys on the end of this here. I definitely can't wait to watch it again. It is a great entry into the MCU. I think that they satisfied everything that I was looking for and then some. And as we know, Cumberbatch isn't done. We know that the majority of this cast hopefully is not done. And we'll see what happens next. But in the meantime, that is the Multiverse of Madness.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.